Wait, did he just combat log? Another combat log. Hey Star Citizen fans, it's Gloith here from Renegade Squadron. Today I want to take the time to talk about something awesome that was added with 3.11, and that is distortion damage. Let's roll the footage. Alright, in this first video I'm fighting a Gladius. He's running attrition with some neutron repeaters, and I'm hitting him with the sucker punches, laying in some damage on him, shooting the cannons when I get close, trying to get that position on him, trying to get those shields tripped. Looks like I've already disabled him. He's trying to run off to try and recover, and as you can see, he's starting to lose control here, and he is disabled. Essentially, I've hit his coolers enough times to force a disable, and now he's just a sitting duck as I rip him apart with that Predator. And it goes pop. Alright guys, in the next engagement I'm fighting Corby, an excellent pilot. I'm trying to hit him early on with these sucker punches, using the range to my advantage. He's pushing at me, hitting me with those distortion repeaters with that attrition, trying to mow my front shields down. I'm trying to get some damage applied to him as much as possible, and as you guys can see, he is just ripping my shields apart because he can hit me a lot easier than I can hit him. However, just really trying to place those shots, make sure I'm hitting his rear end as much as possible, trying to hit those coolers, and I do manage to disable him just in the nick of time, and now I'm just pounding on him with the scatter gun, trying to finish him off here. And I'm being engaged by another opponent, trying to get that kill. And I finally get him. Alright, in this next fight I'm fighting EXP Stitano, an excellent EU pilot. Fighting him, he's running the kind of the medic build with the repeaters, trying to lay into me. As you can see, he's really ripping that front shield apart, but I'm trying to get a good profile shot on him, trying to get behind him, hit those coolers to apply that damage. I'm being shot from behind. He's almost got my shields down, and I finally get enough distortion damage on him to hit him. I'm overheating, and now it's time to lay in that damage with the Predator. I managed to get an assist because some other guy stole the kill. Alright, it's time to finish this. Again, the Gladius is one of those ships that does struggle with overheat a little bit. Pushing in, trying to get behind him, outposition him, and hit those coolers. It's just super important, especially if you're going to be using the build that I'm using. You want to hit those coolers. Again, getting that position around him, shooting him in the rear where those coolers are located, and he just quickly gets disabled and popped. Alright guys, we saw how awesome a distortion build is, but the question is, what's the most effective way of applying it? What are some advantages? What are some things to know when using it? I kind of want to go over that in the next set of videos here. Yeah, let's see how it works. Alright guys, in this clip I'm in an arrow, my partner is in a Gladius. He's going to shoot me in the face with distortion damage, so fair warning, you're going to be blinded here. And as you can see, shields are dropping almost instantly. He's applying that damage, and as you can see, there's not a whole lot of distortion damage being applied. If you look in the lower left hand side, look at the coolers, there's not a whole lot. I point my nose up just a little bit, he's able to get a little bit I think, and then he just keeps firing me, hitting me in the nose. Again, not doing a whole lot of distortion damage. Pitch up, I can fire just fine. He starts firing at me again, and nothing's happened, and maybe just a little bit of distortion damage, and I'm still good to go. Alright, this time he's moving into a position. He's going to try and hit my profile a little bit, try and apply damage to directly to the coolers, and as you can see in the lower left hand side, it just jumps dramatically. And the reason for that is the coolers are on the back side of the ship. You gotta hit it in the right location. So if you want to do distortion damage, you got to go for those profile shots. You got to be looking for position. And he shuts me off because when the coolers shut off, the power plant overheats and then turns the entire ship off. Alright guys, in this clip I'm testing something very, very interesting about distortion damage. And as you guys know, missiles are highly ineffective against targets because of countermeasures and the minimum lock distance. However, when you start applying distortion damage, it essentially is increasing the target's signature, whether it's EM or IR. And if you apply just enough distortion damage, and even potentially disable them, or somewhat disable them, you're going to see here real quick that even despite popping countermeasures, or even a chaff, he's really helpless to do anything. And as you can see, missiles launch countermeasure was out there and he still got hit. Alright guys, let's see that again. Lighting my target up with some distortion damage. I'm using repeaters currently. Making sure he's nice and disabled. Making sure that IR and EM signature is extremely high. Just laying into him. Alright, let's see if he can dodge these missiles with the countermeasures. He lays out decoys, he uses a noise field, and it still kills them. That right there is a very amazing and interesting perk of using distortion weapons compared to traditional laser repeaters or ballistics. Alright guys, you're probably wondering what the actual build is, and I will get to that in a second. But let's take a look at what the actual guns look like, whether they're repeaters or the cannons. Hey, and what do they look like on a Gladius? Let's check it out. Alright, our first gun is the Joker Distortion Autocannon, and this can be found at Hurl 3, Levski, New Babbage, and Grimhex. Our next weapon is the Distortion Repeater. This can be found at Port Olisar and Levski, and to be honest with you, this is just such a great PU weapon, so I would definitely get this one. Alright, it's time to take a look and see what distortion weapons look like on the Gladius. Oh yeah, look at that Predator on the nose. Let's take a look at this bad boy right here. Man, look at those Joker distortion cannons. Man, the Pirate Gladius is such a cool looking ship. It is definitely the Renegade color of choice. As you guys can see there, got some size 1 missiles on there with that distortion cannon on there as well. And that Predator nose gun, that thing is just devastating. Now that is one badass ship. Alright guys, we've got Urkel DPS calculator pulled up, and as you can see here, I've got a Gladius Pirate pulled up. You know, last patch, essentially the Arrow was the meta. It had that agility, it had the DPS, and it just was so much better than a Gladius, simply because it had more agility, and as a result it could kind of speed tank, so to speak. However, what's really cool about this patch, since distortion weapons are now the meta, I would say, is that you gotta have 2 shields. So that's why you're gonna be seeing people running with a Gladius, a Hawk, and even an Avenger, because you really need 2 shields to protect against that distortion damage. So as we can see here, we've got my Gladius with 2 Sucker Punch XL distortion cannons. This is essentially used to take down the shields, and then I've got that Predator scattergun, and that is designed to lay just a ton of DPS down on a target once it's disabled, or even just to trigger that shield to start, you know, recharging. And as you guys can see here, we've got 2 racks of Arrow 1 missiles and 2 racks of Pioneer 1 missiles. And the logic behind this is that if you've hit them with distortion damage, their IR signature is going to be spiking, and so is their EM signature. But the cool part about the arrows is if they run, they're going to have that high IR signature. You can nail them. If they're staying in the fight, but kind of trying to keep their distance from you, if you've hit them enough with the distortion cannons, the Pioneers are going to lock onto them really, really well, because most people are running Guardian shields. And the reason why they're running them is because they want that high HP buffer. However, there's a downside, and that is because of the power to EM and temperature to IR. It's 12.6, that's a lot. So, one of the big recommendations if you're seeing a lot of people that are running distortion builds is don't overclock. Not only that, you could probably even swap this out for a 7 SA Concorde. You lose about 1400 HP, but look at that, 6.6 versus 12.6. So it makes a big difference, especially with power to EM. And the reason for that is, again, as I mentioned, if you get hit with a weapon and it hits the shield, it's going to spike to its max EM signature. So this will cut this in half. It is a lifesaver, because if you're getting comboed by sucker punches or the repeaters, that makes a big difference here. It makes the missiles kind of worthless if you can keep your signature down. Otherwise, they'll get blown up enough that the missiles are going to come right for you. So just keep that in mind. It's a great shield if you see a lot of distortion builds. And then as far as our quantum drive, we are running the VK00, and the reason for that is, well, we're an interceptor. We're finding targets, we're trying to disable them, kill them, and help our buddies catch up to a target and kill together. So another thing to keep in mind, we are running the JS300 power plant. It's got a lot of power. Its power to EM and IR is pretty good. It's got a request time of 10 seconds. That's better than some of the other higher power plant options. And then we've got our ultra flow coolers, and these are gonna make sure that we're staying nice and cool. And I've looked, there's really not a whole lot of difference between the ultra flows and some of the combat ones. I was kind of hoping that different coolers would have different stats, maybe different resistance to distortion damage. I haven't seen it in the files. Maybe it's there, I just haven't seen it, at least with the latest ones. So yeah, just continue going with ultra flows. And this is kind of the build that I run personally, is this build, because you know what? I like that extra shielding, and like I said, I usually don't lose that battle, so I like to make sure I've got plenty of shields in case I'm fighting a non-distortion build. I don't want to be at a disadvantage there. But I would say this is a pretty good AC build if you have a very, very good shot. You know, if you're a crack shot. I would not recommend this build to just your average Joe. This is for your really good players, and the reason for why I say this is it's got a lot of DPS, it's got a lot of alpha damage, but you cannot miss with this thing. You're essentially hitting them with just 2 guns most of the time, and they've got to hit. If you don't hit, you're in trouble. And this Predator, you got to get nice and close. You got to be able to get really, really close to the target to have this assisting you taking down some of those shields with these, you know, sucker punches. So if you're getting outranged, you're going to be in a world of hurt unless you can consistently hit them with these sucker punches. So you got to be a really, really good shot. So I'm going to go ahead, and before we swap over to our next build, I just want to say, if you're in the persistent universe, I would absolutely not go with this build. And the reason I'm going to say that is because these sucker punches can have some serious issues with registering. I've seen multiple times taking shots at people, and it essentially looks like nothing's happening to them. I don't know if it's not even working, the distortion damage. So just keep that in mind. The hit chance with this in the PU is really low, and AC is really, really fun, and you're gonna probably see that or have saw that in some of my videos. But yeah, I would definitely keep this more AC. You can try it against some bigger stuff in the PU and see how it works out, but this is more of, I would say, an AC build. But let's go to our PU build. All right, as you guys can see, we've pretty much got the same setup here. The only difference is that we've got our distortion repeaters and our attrition and another distortion repeater. And the idea behind this is we want this to act kind of just like the old meta, right? The old meta was 3 attritions or 3 neutron repeaters. And we're essentially substituting that for 2 distortion weapons. One, because they saw through shields very, very quickly, and they had the possibility of disabling the ship. And I mean, you can kind of spray and pray with these. You don't have to be super accurate with them. They register really, really well in the persistent universe. Obviously, the damage is a lot less. It's not, I mean, if we go back, nowhere near. It's about, you're talking about another almost 1600 DPS that you're losing, and you look at the alpha. Totally different, right? But the difference is applied DPS, and that cannot be understated. Applied DPS is so important, because if you're not applying it, it doesn't matter how much damage you have, right? You gotta apply this, and this, you can apply 1900 DPS very, very reliably in the persistent universe. So just something to keep in mind. This build is what I would normally run with in the PU. You know, we had a really good fight the other day with a lot of experienced players, and you know, the distortion scattergun build just didn't work. It just didn't. And you know, I was fighting people and they were sawing through my shields with this. So it's just, like I said, this is your PU build, I would say, unless you're going to get some big targets. It's hard to miss the broadside of a barn, right? Then maybe use that build, but for the most part, I would recommend this build in the PU. So with that, that concludes our build for distortion weapons. Alright guys, that's a wrap. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment on any of our videos made during the month of October for your chance to win a copy of Star Wars Squadrons. After all, it's a great game, and I highly encourage you guys just to play it. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Renegade Squadron signing off.